I love this guy.
Yeah, no. You were those Montreal years in particular. You were on the winning side a lot, unless Marty was in goal at Bell Center. Marty seemed to have a really good record against the Canadiens in Montreal, but you guys usually did pretty well down in New Jersey against.
He liked to reference that, Mr. Brodeur did. He did like to play in Montreal. He was going home and he wanted to put on a show there. I mean, you know him very, very well. I mean, you guys have a tremendous relationship. You emceed his ceremony. I mean, talk about that a little bit. I mean, knowing that in your time in New Jersey. And that's
it was it was a lot of fun knowing him. And I'm not sure, Craig, if you ever met his father, because he was always at games in Montreal, Denny. He would be in the press room. And I wound up, because you've probably heard of Chico Resch, and his characteristic is to talk a lot. And Denny would talk some too, and I would listen, because it was two goaltenders carrying on conversations. But Marty grew up carrying around Denny's photographic equipment because he was the team photographer for the Canadiens and the Expos. Right. And then Marty would go and sit in the upper tier at the old Forum as a young kid and watch the goaltenders. And he idolized Ron Hextall and his puck handling ability. And that was part of the reason, I think, that he was so good at handling the puck himself. But Marty was just one of these great guys, especially for us in the media, because he would talk all the time. I'll never forget a quick story. Game 7, 2003, against what was then known as the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. And it's the morning skate at the Meadowlands. And you know how many people cluster around, because Andrew, you remember the conference final in 06 with Carolina and how many media there were around then. Well, you multiply that times about 3 when you get the Stanley Cup final. And so they were all jammed into that tiny Devils dressing room at the Meadowlands. And Marty sat there after he had come off the ice after 20 minutes at the morning skate, because he would go out for 20 minutes and then come off. And then all of his Devils teammates eventually filed off. And people like myself are all gathered around, and I left after about 10 minutes. So then the Ducks go out and they come off. And by now it's almost 12:30 on the day of the 7th game. And he is still there answering questions in 2 different languages. And eventually he leaves at about 12:45. But he held court with the media because they had questions. And so he just stayed there and politely answered. And that night he shut out the Ducks, and the Devils won the last of their 3 Stanley Cups. And that's one of the memories I have of him. That's how good he was with the media. And I'm sure that there were others who would not stay around for 2 hours on the day of a 7th game. As a matter of fact, I can't imagine anybody doing that, but that's what Marty Brodeur did.
Today's kids would have been looking at their watch, looking at the media guys saying, "Are we done? When are you getting me out of here?"
It is very surprising to know these things about certain individual players that you played against. And, Petey had the opportunity of playing with Marty, and he just seems like the ultimate hockey player. Like, he seems like the ultimate team guy. He was very open. We were talking earlier today in the show about, how certain people prepare for games. I was a little bit more serious on game day, and he spoke about Marty Brodeur being very light and open. And I wouldn't have pegged Marty for that, but it's awesome to listen to.
Well, Doc Emrick joined. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just, I was noticing that. And of course, since we never met, Craig, why 52?
When I got called up at the age of 20, that was the number that they gave me at training camp.
Really?
So my very first training camp at age 18, I was given number 94. And so the higher your number, in Gretzky's case, it was a good thing, but
right.
The higher your number at the Montreal training camp meant that you had no chance of making it. So my first 2 years were high 90s. My third year, which was my first pro year, I wore number 52 at training camp. I was moving down, and I got called up that year at the end of the year, and in my stall was number 52. I didn't ask questions. I didn't care what number it was. I was just happy to be there. And you know what? They asked me a little bit after that, once I kind of established myself, if I wanted to change my number, and I said, you know what, this is what you gave me. I'm just happy to be here. I'll stick with it. So,
and you can see Doc, and you can see behind him, he has all his jerseys on display.
Yeah, well, in honor of you, Andrew, I decided we should probably put the Charlestown Chiefs up. And for that matter, there is the Port Huron Flags. That was the first team that ever paid me to do their games. It was 1973. It was $160 a week, and I negotiated that salary and felt like I'd done a really good job until I left the general manager's office. And then I felt like I should renegotiate, and he laughed. And he said, if I like what I hear in 6 months, I'll give you another $20 a week. So I was up to 180 after 6 months. But anyway, that Port Huron Flags logo is still carried by the youth hockey teams in Port Huron. As many people in Buffalo know, we're a border community with Sarnia, just like Buffalo is with Fort Erie. But among the famous people who were very good without gloves on too, our Battleship Bob Kelly, who played 1 year with the IHL Flags, and a guy named Jerry Korab, who in 68-69 played for the Port Huron Flags before he went to the Western League, and then eventually Chicago and Los Angeles and Buffalo, and played for the Sabres in that 1975 final with the Flyers. There have been a lot of very good guys without gloves on in the history of the Sabres, haven't there?
Who's your favorite?
Huh?
Who's
well,
your favorite?
I'm talking to him right now, but
if you're doing a show next with Larry Playfair, Rob Ray, Brad May, and all these other tough guys, and you say the same thing, I'm going to be very disappointed.
No, well, I don't think they're going to ask me on their shows like you did. So Matt Barnaby, Andrew Peters, Rob Ray, Patrick Coletta, and John Scott would be the guys who have worn the Sabres jersey. Now, some wore it longer than others, but that was the list I put together yesterday. However, I go back to the Jim Schoenfeld era, and not many wanted to mess with Jim either. So It goes all the way back.
You never mess with a man in a turtleneck in the late 80s or the early 80s. You know what I mean? It means he's ready to dance.
I got a chance to see the very first Sabres game ever. That was the first season that I was an unpaid correspondent to a daily newspaper in suburban Pittsburgh. And the Sabres' very first game, and Rick Jenneret undoubtedly did it, was at Civic Arena in Pittsburgh. And they introduced every member of the Penguins because it was opening night. And they introduced every member of the Sabres. And one by one, they skated out to the blue line. And the Sabres were all greeted with polite applause that night because it was a brand new team, and Gilbert Perreault was one of them. But there was one player on the Sabres that got booed loudly because the Penguins were 3 years old at that time, Reggie Fleming. They had seen his act before, and they decided they didn't like him very much. But and the Sabres won the game.
Instigators joining us right now. If he were from the UK, they would call him Sir Doc Emrick.
I don't think so, but it's very kind of you to say so.
We will refer to you as Mr. Doc Emrick. Obviously, people may not realize the name Doc comes from the fact that you have a PhD. You got that for, I just read actually, was that for, you were teaching? Were you teaching?
Yeah, they're at Bowling Green. They're trying to forget that back there. But yes, I got a teaching assistantship at Bowling Green. And part of the stipulation was the radio station manager saw me go through and talk to all of the academics that day. And he said, if you come here, you can do the second period of the Falcon hockey games. And I had never done games to anybody but myself. And so my eyes lit up and I said, I'm coming to Bowling Green. And I taught a couple of classes in production. And for that, they waived my tuition, and I worked toward a doctorate degree and eventually finished it while I was riding buses in the IHL and watching guys without gloves on do some very creative things in the 70s, because the Philadelphia Flyers farm team in Portland, Maine, which was called the Mariners at that time, they didn't draft many guys that were under 6 feet. And they didn't draft many guys that were under 190 pounds. The chief rival was the Montreal Canadiens farm team in Nova Scotia. And they used to have some wonderful wars. Why am I smiling? I'm sorry. I'll look ashamed.
Don't. Well, we don't see enough of that anymore. I'm not saying that I'm calling for, what I did, but I definitely feel like that passion and fire that sparks those incidents is missed still.
Well, are people in Buffalo still talking like the Sabres players are talking about Dylan Cousins fighting Ryan Lindgren the other night at Madison Square Garden? The quotes from the players afterwards it was the liveliest part of the game, and the people that observed it felt that, and Sabres players said it picked up our bench. It was someone who was playing before you were born named John Ferguson, who said that a fight can still change the course of a hockey game. And even though the game has changed a lot, there are still times when that can happen. If you and I are to swap stories, and I must tell you that I don't want to invite myself on longer, but I got word from NBC that the program that I was supposed to do at 11 has been changed to 11:30, so I don't have to get off as early unless if you want me to stay on a little longer. But
I was thinking we'd cut it even shorter than we originally.
Okay, good. Well, you just tell me when you want me to get off. But we all have stories from back in that period of time. And undoubtedly, Craig heard some at the bench if he wasn't involved in them himself. Darren Langdon, I don't know if you ever fought him.
3 times one season.
Did you?
Smallest hands, but the strongest hands. He could hang on, man. That guy was...
I played with him in Montreal for a little while.
Did you? Now, he wasn't the largest guy.
No.
But he was like so many of the guys, he was self-effacing and enjoyable to be around. And that's why I oftentimes sat next to him in the dressing room. He was with New Jersey for a while, and he got to telling stories about some of the conversations that led to his fights. He said, I was playing for Calgary, and of course, one of the reigning champions of that era was a man named George Larocque. And he said, we're in a game with Edmonton, and we're starting to lose our momentum, if you know what I mean. And the coach says, George is out there. We're slipping. And that was all he told me. And so over the boards I went and stood next to George. And I said, we got to go. And George said, no, my hand is bad. And Darren said, oh, thank God.
I would too. But you wouldn't, I don't know that you're saying that to him, but you're just thinking,
yeah.
But you know what you're doing?
Thought.
You know what a really smart, tough guy would do after that, Doc, is you would start cross-checking and go, come on, because they hide all the injuries, right? So you're going to challenge him, and then you look like Larocque is turning you down, which is something
I'll tell you one more about Larocque in Edmonton, and then you guys can tell one if you want to. I don't want to direct your show. I'm not sure what you want to do with it, but anyway, I'm doing a Devils game in Edmonton. And Jim McKenzie was one of the best spoken players, very much like yourself. And so we would have him on often during the intermissions because he could speak so well. Anyway, at the end of the first period in Edmonton, there's no score. And about 4 minutes to go in the period, the producer asks me who we want on at the end of the first. And the only thing that is on my score sheet is a fight between Jim McKenzie and George Larocque. And I said, well, let's get Jimmy Mack on. So anyhow, he comes on and I said, Jim, I know some of this is probably privileged, but what started the fight? He said, well, we got to the face-off circle. And I said, George, I haven't had one in a while. And he said, you want to go now? And he said, no, let's get some ice time in first and then we'll go. So we went down to one end and then we came back to the other and then we dropped the gloves. We had a pretty good one, I thought. And I said, yeah, I thought so too. But I'm sure that there are people around hockey that frown on that sort of thing, but I did not, obviously, and I still don't. So there it is. Well, now it's your turn.
Don't ever change. Sir Doc Emrick joining us here on the Instigators, and I think we might be able to get him a little bit longer here as his next meeting has canceled. But and when we'd love to keep you around. I watched The Voice of Hockey. In fact, you know what? I'm going to tell you a story. My father caught The Voice of Hockey, the whole thing, and he calls me and he says, "Do you know Doc Emrick?" And I said, "As a matter of fact, I do." And I was very proud to say that, by the way. And I said, "As a matter of fact, I do." And he said, "Well, there's a guy," or he would never say guy. He said, "There's a gentleman you should have on your show." And I said, "Well, Dad, you're not the producer of our show." You know what I mean? It's like, Dad. He's like, no. Listen, I told you to get certain guys. You didn't get them. They've passed away and things like that. He's like, there are guys that are great guys that are still. No. He's not suggesting your age, but like,
no. I know.
No. But he, my dad's a historian of the game. Like he loves old stories. He loves your story where you came from small town in Indiana, like not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I watched The Voice of Hockey. I watched The Voice of Hockey that NBCSN did. And I'm not going to lie to you. I wasn't sure if I was going to say this to you, but I am going to say this to you. I did not wipe my tears away. I let them fall. And I swear I cried. I watched it and I was in tears. And I said, whatever you do when you tell him this, if you decide to tell him that you were in tears, don't get emotional, right? But yeah. I got so emotional. I wasn't, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, you gave so much to the game. You referenced your wife and how many nights alone she would have been. You always think about everybody else. What does it mean to you? What does it feel like to be known as one of the greatest men in hockey, the nicest human beings people will ever meet? That's all I ever knew you of.
Thank you.
When I met you, it was what a great individual you were, and how Andrew Peters, a guy that really won't have much impact on the game tonight, was approached and had a wonderful conversation with somebody that I didn't even think would want to talk to me.
Shoot. Are you kidding?
No. So I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking, and then we talked in Buffalo. You took the time. I told you I was out of hockey and starting my career. You sat down with me on a game day for about 45 minutes and we chatted. We had coffee together. And I just think that's the Doc Emrick. What they did and what they portrayed of you, how does that make you feel?
Well, it makes me feel in awe because I don't think that I'm really that special. A guy that you undoubtedly fought at one time, Dave Brown, or did was he out of the game? Was he out of the game?
He was out of the game. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Flyers.
Razor did though. Razor took him down. I got to throw that. Yeah, Razor took him down with one. Yeah, that's one you definitely need to give a throw out to. Not many guys took down Dave Brown, but sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I have a lot of respect for anybody that did that as a part of the sport because, as I referenced earlier, it still causes a bench to get excited, and it still brings life into a game when a team needs it, and that's why even though we don't see much in the playoffs anymore, you still can have that change the course of the emotion at a bench. And that's why what was referenced the other night at Madison Square Garden. But anyway, getting back to that, Dave Brown, when I was with the Flyers, he was on a Flyers cruise with the fans. And he's standing in line on a Sunday morning at the Sunday brunch, and he's got a plate in his hand, and he's watching the chef make crepes. And he watches it for a while, and he said, in typical Dave Brown fashion, not using too many words, seems like a lot of trouble to go to for pancakes. And it struck me as when I was there in Port Huron at the theater, seeing them go to all this trouble, it seemed like a lot of trouble to go to for pancakes because I was just a lucky guy to get in free and to get a good seat for the game. And more importantly, to get to be the person that shared stories about people like yourself and Craig with the fans. The thing that I missed the most last summer in August and September was not getting access to players and coaches. And I was doing games from my house, but it wouldn't have changed had I been in the bubbles in Toronto and Edmonton. And from what I understand, it wouldn't have changed this year, because the best part of the job, other than doing the job and describing the excitement of the game, was sitting in a dressing stall next to Darren Langdon and hearing about his non-fight with George and things like that. But hearing those stories and having some of them that you can share with the fans, because those are the ones that aren't published, because fans love the sport, they love the players, and they will read everything they can get their hands on the internet or in analog editions of the newspapers back years before. And so you have to come up with something fresh that they haven't heard before. And that was the way to do it. And it was the fun part of preparation for the job. The statistics were another matter. Everybody could have those in their hands sitting in front of the TV screens, but the stories like that was the fun part. That was really the fun part of doing the job. And that I miss a lot. I miss guys like you, and I'm sorry that I never met Craig person to person. Maybe that'll change once things get more open. I'm glad to see in the state of New York that people can actually pay the price of admission and come in now, because for so long it was empty, and that wasn't good.
Doc Emrick joining us here on the Instigators Rib. You look like you were just about to take a breath and ask a question.
What? I mean, I'm usually quiet in these type of interviews. If you haven't seen already, I just it's almost like I get captivated, with people like you that I think. I don't think you really realize the impact that you've had on people. And maybe you do. Maybe you're at home right now and you're able to kind of internalize what you've done in your career and just what you've done for people. I was born in 1974 in North Bay, Ontario. I had the ability to, at a very early age, get a bowl of chips with my brother and sit in front of the tube with my mom and dad and my brother, and we used to watch Hockey Night in Canada. There's not a better song in the world than listening to that. And people like Bob Cole and Dick Irvin, those are people, and yourself for that matter. Those people will be remembered in my brain until I die, because it was something that I grew up with, that I'll never forget their voices. And to have you on today, I've never met you, but I've had the ability, now that I've been retired, and the pure joy of hearing your voice and how you call a game is absolutely mesmerizing. And it's something that you've touched so many people, and I mean, just being on this show here today, to sit back and listen to your voice.
The stories you tell, Doc, when you talk about voice. Doc Parise and the skyhook into the corner and he'll change. Right.
See, there are only two people, to my knowledge, I'm sure there have been others that have tried. There have only been two people that have ever told me, or that I've heard about, that have done my voice. And Andrew, I've heard, and he does it really well. The other I haven't heard is Cal Clutterbuck. I understand that he does it too, but he has never favored me with that. And I don't know that I'll cross paths with Cal now that I'm out of circulation. But Andrew did it even when he was in New Jersey, and I was walking through the dressing room, and he did it really well. And so that's been one of the joys because it is flattering to hear somebody do that. There's never been the contest like there is with other announcers, because it doesn't strike me as an easy one to do. But maybe I don't know any better. But Craig, it's so kind of you to say that, because I've seen your career move on year after year, and I'm glad that you're enjoying the time since hockey, and that you're staying busy with Andrew in this show and other things too, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
What are you doing to keep busy? How much do you miss hockey right now? Was it a tough way to go out last year with COVID?
Well, it in a way it was, but in a way it wasn't, because I was healthy, and NBC at the juncture between the second and third round said you won't have to go to the bubble in Edmonton. You can stay home. It will involve more technology on our part to get you wired directly into the truck in Edmonton, since all of our staff is going there now. But you can stay home and you can do the conference final and the Stanley Cup final from home. At that point, I was assured of being healthy all the way through. And at that point, I thought back to 50 years since that first Pittsburgh Sabres game at Civic Arena, and 40 years of doing games on television, and 60 years since I saw my first hockey game. And I thought, I'm going to be 75 soon, and I'm still healthy. My wife is still healthy, and we have more good times ahead of us, we hope. But actuaries tell you that it's not forever. And so this seems like a very good time to say thank you very much. And boy, have I ever had a wonderful time doing this. Now, to answer your question, Andrew, I'm not away from hockey. I just had the wonderful experience of doing the first of 10 essays for NBC, and it involved the 1960 U.S. Olympic team. 9 out of the 17 that were on the team are still living. And so there was a feature that ran a couple of weeks ago about the 1960 Olympic team. Bill Cleary, who for many years coached Harvard, still living and on that team. And he was the guy who did, years ago, there was a movie called Love Story, 50 years ago, that featured Ryan O'Neal and Ally McGraw. He did a lot of the scenes, just like Rod Bloomfield did in Slapshot for Paul Newman. He did a lot of the scenes of Ryan O'Neal in that hockey movie called Love Story. But anyway, he was on that team. Harry Sinden was on Team Canada at the Squaw Valley Olympics. Bobby Rousseau, who later played for the Montreal Canadiens, won 4 Stanley Cups there, was on Canada's team. Bobby Rousseau and Harry Sinden got the silver. The USSR, which was the defending gold medal winner from Cortina in 56, they took home the bronze. But the U.S. was picked by one national magazine to finish last, and they won it all. And I got to do that. I got to assemble an essay on them, including some interviews with them. And so that's the first of 10. So I'm staying busy with that. And that keeps my hockey appetite whetted. And I watch games every night. I watched Boston last night and Washington start to finish. I might watch some of Buffalo and the Rangers tonight, or the Islanders tonight. Islanders haven't lost a 60-minute game at home yet this year. And the Sabres...
Don't do this to us.
Okay.
We don't need to hear about the Islanders.
Okay.
We
Sabres are due to break out
enough
sometime,
time. Pardon?
Sabres are due to break out sometime, aren't they?
Well, and it would be nice if it were against the Islanders, because the Islanders are good. The Islanders are good. Doc Emrick joining us here right now. Just absolutely enjoying ourselves so much with you. I guess I just want to say I'm so glad you didn't get into baseball. I am.
Long time ago.
You wanted to be a baseball guy, didn't you? You changed to hockey. I saw this. You changed to hockey after going to a game in Fort Wayne. And, I'm thinking, and all I kept thinking is, if Doc were in baseball, I would know who the hell he is.
That's true.
What are you grabbing for? Well, no, it's just because I don't really follow baseball, Doc. What are you grabbing for us there?
That's John Ferguson wore that in Fort Wayne. That was the Comets jersey, and they are still playing to this day. They've only lost one 60-minute game out of 9 that they've played. They started late. But that was their jersey until the latter part of the 1960s. The smiling spaceman, back at a time when a spaceman was really unusual. And yeah, I'm still a baseball fan, but I'm not sure what you can say about being a Pirate fan, because there have been some really sad years lately with that. But I do like baseball, but I like it as a fan but not as an announcer. I did one game and I enjoyed it thoroughly, but I'll never do it again.
Have you collected a lot of memorabilia over the years?
No, I have 4 signed pieces. The Devils from 2000 gave me a jersey. The 98 women's gold medal team from Nagano gave me a jersey that was signed. Bobby Orr signed his flying through the air picture. And I have a rookie, Mario Lemieux's last year and Sidney Crosby's first year, a picture taken together that they signed for me. And those are my only 4 signed pieces. That's it. I'm not a big collector. I do have a lot of stuff that is, there are guides from a long time ago. And so what I'm hoping is, because the book that I wrote called Off Mic that came out last fall, the proceeds of everything I get from that go to the hands-on care of animals. And so I'm hoping that if I put all the guides together, that perhaps from 1980 to 2005, every Sabres guide, that some Sabres fan might want it. And if I get it up on some platform where they could offer me something for it, that money could go to animal care too. And that storage unit that I have that has all that stuff in it, I could eventually clear out. That's at least a goal in retirement.
Ship it to the Hall of Fame, Doc. Ship it to the Hall of Fame.
They've got plenty of stuff.
We take, unfortunately, we gotta take commercials, and I hate to cut this off.
Okay.
And I cannot thank you enough for coming on. I have one.
Oh, that's all right. It's wonderful to talk to you two.
I have one small question for you. One small favor before you go.
Yeah.
I'll put you on the spot. Would you please just make up a goal in your head and call in an Andrew Peters goal for me? I've never had the pleasure of Doc. I've had the great Rick Jenneret. But
yeah,
I'd love to hear a goal call from the great.
You're asking him the impossible, Andy.
Riv, just stay on side on the line rush.
Who do you want in goal?
Brodeur.
Okay, that's going to be tough. But of course, he probably hasn't seen you other than in a warm up or as a teammate. He probably hasn't faced you on a breakaway before.
Yes, only as a teammate. And I beat him. I made him look silly one day in San Jose at practice, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Craig, who was your defense partner more often than not in Buffalo?
I would say probably Chris Butler.
Chris Butler?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to juxtapose the years then, because of the overlap that didn't occur. So, okay, and we'll put Miller in goal, I guess, for Buffalo. And so it's New
Peters,
Jersey.
Mayer, and Coletta are out there together.
Oh no, that wouldn't. Lindy would not be that foolish, would he? Oh my. Okay. Routine dump in by Langenbrunner, and Miller paddles it aside. Butler circle to circle across for Rive, dumps it off the boards, out of the box, having served his major penalty for spearing. It is Peters in on a breakaway, looks, shoots on Brodeur. He scores! Peters on a breakaway, and the Sabres empty the bench to celebrate. They'll take the minor and be glad to do it.
And wait a minute, Doc. Wait a minute. Ed Olchuk here. I think they're going to video replay. It looked like Rive was offside, and this one's going to be called back. Most likely would have been his last NHL goal, Doc. But this will be. You're fantastic. You've been fantastic. Thank you so much for the added time. I'm so grateful that you would come on and do this show with us, and I'm so honored to say that I know you. Thank you so much.
I need to finish the sentence. And the score of the game will either be Sabres 6, Devils 1, or Sabres 7, Devils 1.
There you go.
Be good, guys.
Thank you so much, Doc Emrick. You're the best.
All right.
We'll be back. Instigators with Elliot Friedman, WGR 550 and MSG.